And I quote, "What exactly is Seattle's plan to become an annual contender?" Question that needs an answer.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what do you say, Seattle hockey fans? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Erica L. Ayala here, your host of Locked On Kraken, also a contributor over at CBS Sports and the founder of Black Rosie Media, where we empower Black women and melanated creators in sports media. Before we get into the question in the cold open, want to let you know that today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by our good friends at GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download GameTime today. What time is it? It's game time. It's also time to find out where that quote came from. I'm going to read it again in case you didn't listen to the open. Quote, "What exactly is Seattle's plan to become an annual contender?" This is coming from The Athletic. They have been putting out all kinds and always do put out all kinds of off-season content, lots of rankings, lots of gradings, and they actually put out an ask in a few different categories, including how do fans feel about every team? NHL front office confidence rankings 2024. And so you, the fans, have spoken. And before I get into what the Athletic said, and I really just looked at these last night. So the last several episodes of me talking about have we done well enough? You know, we have our new segment and Locked On Insiders. I sent you another 4 stock up, stock downs, and we had Ron Francis in our first ever stock up, stock down. We've been talking about this. I've been talking about this for at least a year and a half, a season and a half. And I think these grades are really interesting. Now, do I necessarily agree with all of them? Well, we're going to discuss that. But here are the grades per the Athletic for the Seattle Kraken as far as confidence in the front office. If you're watching on YouTube, hey, YouTubers, I'm going to pull up a graphic for everyone else. I will walk you through this. So you're looking at a diagram. The overall rank and grade is a D+, which is ranked 27th in the National Hockey League. There's a category for the public vote and then the fan base. And the categories are roster building, cap management, draft and development, trading, free agency, the overall vision, and then, of course, the total grade. The fan grade is a D+. The public grade is a C-. Now, this comes off the heels of last year, and this is also on the graphic, where the Seattle Kraken, who are ranked 27th right now per The Athletic and in their latest rankings, they were ranked 9th last season. So, oh, how the great and mighty have fallen. The Seattle Kraken were ranked last year overall 9th. The fan base had 15% more confidence. The public had 6% more confidence last season, and that's all on the graphic. You can check it out over at The Athletic. So what does this exactly mean? What is The Athletic doing? I'm going to walk you through all of that. So again, this is an article that came out for The Athletic. They're ranking all 32 NHL teams, and I'm just going to read the opening blurb to you. The Athletic is behind a paywall. As someone who works in media and sometimes has content behind paywalls, I told you I'm not going to read verbatim. I'm not going to show it on the screen. I did show the graphic, but if you don't have a subscription to The Athletic, highly recommend that you check it out. I used to write for The Athletic. You can still find some of my WNBA articles on there. Anyway, we digress. Here is the opener. Every summer, we ask one simple question: how confident are you in your team's front office? It's a wisdom of the crowd approach meant to show which front offices are doing the best job and which ones aren't. It's not a perfect encapsulation of front office ability. I want to repeat that. And this is not me reading verbatim, this is me literally repeating. Quote, it's not a perfect encapsulation of front office ability. The "what have you done for me lately" vibe that often stems from recency bias is perfectly reflected in the often erratic year to year movement. I mean, hello, from 9th to 27th. Crazy. But it does provide a temperature check on how fans are feeling about the state of their favorite team or teams and how outsiders view things as well. Now this was printed August 6th. Like I said, I didn't see it August 6th. I was still in Paris. So I just came across this. I did not take a look at it in the last handful of episodes where I've been questioning the front office. The ninth overall ranking last year is one of the first gripes that I have, because if you're an everydayer, if you're an OGer, then you know I wasn't thrilled with what we did last season, leading into last season, I should say. And that's where, again, the recency bias that is referenced, the "what have you done for me lately" great Janet Jackson song, all of those things come into play, because I really don't think we should have had high expectations based off of what the front office did in the off season. In fact, there were a lot of questions that I had going into next season, and I still have a decent amount of questions. But let's get to what this article says, and then I'm going to take you to another article. We're going to talk about it briefly and then break some things down later on. But the article about the Kraken, I mean, is just basically saying that there's a great shift and a massive loss of confidence in the Seattle Kraken. And that quote that I read you, I'm going to read it again. What exactly is Seattle's plan to become a contender? If you listened to yesterday's episode, and I didn't see this article before I went on my mini rant. I actually had to cut yesterday's episode. I thought about doing a two-parter, and maybe I should have, but because I had a lot more ammunition. But that is exactly what I've been asking. I've been asking this for a year and a half. So those of you who listen to the show every episode, you know that I don't see the vision. And where I was trying to follow along by faith last year, even that was starting to diminish. And now it is kind of like, you got to show me what you're working with. And I don't know that we're going to know that yet. There's a lot of newness. We talked about that also a little bit on yesterday's episode. But what else is the Athletic saying? Well, first of all, I'm going to read what the Athletic said, and then there's some pull quotes from fans who responded, because this is a survey based on responses that the Athletic received. Quote, all of the optimism the Kraken garnered after a shocking 2023 playoff run has faded since. While fans love Seattle's work at the draft, the team's work in free agency has become a serious sore spot. I mean, and what else did I say? Even immediately following the playoff run, maybe we arrived too early. And while I had confidence a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, in the plan, when you get to a destination a little bit early, you have to recalibrate. And it just doesn't feel to me like the Kraken have done that. I've been saying that for a while now on the podcast. So the reason I just found this is because I used to be a writer, I actually used to have access to the Athletic for free. And I'm also a subscriber to the New York Times. Those two entities are basically the same. I also used to write for the New York Times. And then they folded in all of their sports with the Athletic. Anyway, why am I saying this? Because for a while, I couldn't figure out why my subs for the New York Times weren't giving me the sports section, and then the Athletic account that I thought I had still active wasn't active anymore. So I was just missing a bunch of sports. And when I can't figure something out, sometimes I don't bother troubleshooting it because I just don't want to deal with it. Anyway, I had some time yesterday to troubleshoot. I've got my athletic / New York Times subscription back. And so I wanted to see what they were saying about the Kraken. Because as I mentioned on yesterday's episode, the Minnesota Wild, or was it the Dallas? It was Minnesota. Seth mentioned the Athletic, and I was like, hey, I want to check out that article. Anyway, long story short, I just got back on here, and I think there's some valid points to be made. Some of them that I've already made, some of them that I made well before August 6th. So I'm feeling a little validated. I'm feeling a little vindicated. I'm feeling like, yeah, I absolutely used to write for this publication on the women's basketball side. So not in hockey. But I mean, come on. If you're a listener, you have to know, right, that I've been saying a lot of this. There are two quotes here from fans that I think are interesting. The first one, quote, "The front office is moving too slowly for such a new team." I promise you, like I said, that's why I explained my whole situation with the New York Times / The Athletic. I did not read this article until yesterday. I did not respond because I did not have access to The Athletic. But I have been saying this for so long that I just don't think that I think we're moving too conservative. I think we're a little too beholden to the original vision and we're not nimble enough to change. The quote goes on to say, "I'm excited for the new coaching staff, but without some sort of elite scoring or keystone player, in parentheses, Chandler Stevenson, ain't it? We're going to repeat last season." That is my fear. That is my fear. We also have on Locked On Kraken gone through every month, every single month of the 2024-25 schedule. And I went through the games that I think you should be watching, the games that I think are going to be key within that month. And I told you the first 3 months of the season on paper, we're going to have that's a new coaching staff that's going to have a lot to prove right out of the gate. It's a little troublesome. The next quote, "Ron Francis had his chance to build an organization from the ground up. And while we weren't expecting a repeat of Vegas, we're nowhere close. His long-term contracts have mainly been misses, and now we're running out of cap room." That last point, if I didn't hammer that point home on yesterday's episode, on the episode before that, that's exactly the concern. We were heralded, right, in season 1 that we had all of these draft picks, that we had this cap space, that, we're going to play the system. And I don't know if that's working right now. And I said it before Dave Haxtell got let go. I could see absolutely why you might want to make a coaching change. But to me, the glaring inconsistencies, flat out miscues were coming from the front office. It's not that it can't be fixed, but if we're not going to address that, that's at least in part the issue, just like we need to address that we're not going to eggs, Berkey basket, defense, asking your goaltender to do everything defensively. And then it's like, oh, but our, goals against expected. I don't know how many times I can say these things without getting exhausted. I don't see the vision anymore. And again, I said it yesterday. I'm not a general manager, but I am a journalist. I have been trained and have worked to perfect the craft of analyzing sports news, sports stats. And yes, I rely personally heavily on the eye test to then make sure that I'm going to the stats, that I'm going to the quotes. That's how I do things. I trust my eyes. My eyes, my gut, and what we're seeing are telling me that the Kraken, whether we know it or not, and it's a little concerning if we don't know it, whether we know it or not, we are teetering on a very, I don't want to say dangerous, but this is a critical season. This is a critical season for the Seattle Kraken. Um, I I read the part about the optimism of the Kraken garnered after the 2023 playoff run has faded. Then the article, not the quotes from fans, the article goes on to say, while fans love Seattle's work at the draft, the team's work in free agency has become a serious source. But I also read that as well. It goes on to say, in each year of their existence, the Kraken have found a way to put an immediate problem on the books, with this year's Chandler Stevenson deal the biggest one yet. Moves like that have not only put a damper on the team's fleeting cap space, but also on the overall vision, for the organization. So what exactly is the plan? And, there's another list on here that I think we have to get to. And it's something else that we've talked about on the show. We're going to talk about two more lists. I actually wasn't going to talk about this one. So we're going to replace Kraken connections with some more positive news. But I'm going to do an audible because I do want to talk about this. Coming up next, we're going to talk about this article for The Athletic, ranking each NHL team's current and future goaltending outlook, part 1, the bottom 10. That's coming up on today's episode of Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken is brought to you by GameTime. Now, I tell you all the time, I love GameTime. I'm getting ready to head to Seattle. I probably have a trip to Vegas coming up. And I've already looked at GameTime because the Yankees are going to be playing the M's when I'm in Seattle. I am not a Yankees fan. And so I will be in full Kraken / Mets regalia, whatever. I'll be donned in my finest Mets and Kraken gear to troll all of the Yankees fans, whether they are at T-Mobile Park or watching on TV. And I can do that with the GameTime app because I can make sure that I take a look at the view from my seats, make sure that I'm right there by the zip line so that roaming camera can find me. And I bet you they will, because who doesn't like a troll? And usually I'm a little bit of a mush. So sorry in advance, Seattle M's fans. But I'm going to go to the GameTime app. And like I do every year when I'm in Seattle for training camp, my good friend and I are going to go to the M's game. It just so happens that I get to troll the Yankees while I'm in town. You can find so many amazing things on GameTime. But I want to make sure to tell you about GameTime Picks. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. You get all-in pricing also by toggling this feature. It shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Don't forget to toggle the feature. That's huge. If you're on a budget, I'm usually most always balling on a budget. So you best believe I'm always toggling that feature. I mentioned the seat views already. And then there's the lowest price guarantee, or GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKED. Spelling is hard. LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download GameTime today. What time is it? Oh, you best believe it's game time. Thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. We appreciate you everydayers, and being an everydayer is a cool place to be. You cool cats know a lot of what we're talking about on today's episode I've already been talking about. It's not surprising to me. Is it frustrating? For sure, but not surprising. So make sure you become an everydayer. Listen to Locked On Kraken every day. And the best way to do that is to head over to our YouTube channel, subscribe, and hit your notifications so you know every time we post and upload. You can also, of course, follow at Locked On Kraken on social media. Okay. This next one is brutal. This is goaltending. And we had to know. Once I saw this list, I was like, I can't imagine that the Kraken are not on here. Now, should they be on here? Well, I will be honest. I don't have a good finger on the pulse on all of the other 31 NHL teams and their goaltending tandems or their prospect pipelines. I do have a good finger on the pulse of what's happening in Seattle. And again, goaltending is not a place where, at least not with what seems to be a long term plan, the Seattle Kraken have made any differences. And if the Kraken are waiting for all of these prospects to come up and just like crush it in the NHL, I mean, sure, that's a whole vibe. You can totally do that. And we're going to talk about some of those prospects that have the opportunity to absolutely crush it. That's coming up next, also through The Athletic or analyzing one of their articles. But there's a little bit of danger in where the Kraken are when it comes to being able to make the right decisions at the right time. So The Athletic has ranked the bottom 10, so going from 32 down and sitting at 29, the Seattle Kraken. Now, they currently, according to the Athletic, are at 16, but in the future, they're at 29. The Kraken have signed some pretty bad goalie contracts over their short history, but Joey Daccord came in with a brilliant rookie season to rescue them. Just like Martin Jones rescued us. No, I will never let the Martin Jones thing go. And you best believe if I ever get a chance to sit down with Martin Jones, like really have a sit down conversation with him, I want to hear what his experience was with Seattle, because I will never be okay that he wasn't at exit interviews. I digress. Going back to the article, coming off my soapbox, considering his long road to this point and the fickle nature of the position, I'm not quite ready to crown Daccord, but if he maintains last year's form moving forward, Seattle certainly belongs higher on this list. And that's the thing. I talk about the eggs in the Berkey basket. Everyone is cautiously optimistic with Joey Daccord. Is it because of Joey? Maybe. We've talked about some of the ups and downs of Joey Daccord, the maturity that he has seen year over year. And I do think that these 2 seasons will help him in that. We also talk about how exciting he is, and that he effectively, as far as we know, has been able to stay healthy. But there are definitely things that shake Joey up. But that's when you need a good goalie tandem. And at times, Philip Grubauer has done exactly what Martin Jones and exactly what Joey Daccord have had to do, which is to anchor this team. No pun intended, though. I'm fine with it. He's had to anchor the team. But is that something that we can rely on? Or is it a Burakovsky situation? Is it a Jaden Schwartz kind of situation? Let's hear what the Kraken have to, or excuse me, what the Athletic has to say about the future. And they also talk about the cap and the bottom line. So here we go. The Kraken have a number of goalie prospects, but I'm really only much of a believer in 20-year-old Nicholas Coco, who has put together a respectable profile across parts of 3 seasons in Liga already. Kim Siaranen, who they drafted in the 3rd round in 2024, has size, is a summer birthday, and has some believers in Finland, would be their number 2 goalie prospect for me. And that's pretty much where it ends. They don't really like too much else coming from the pipeline. When it comes to the cap, they're at 29. At $5.9 million for another 3 years on a 32-year-old who hasn't hit 900 since Colorado, Philip Grubauer is arguably among the worst goalie contracts in the league right now. The only saving grace here is that Daccord is cheap, But even that's a double edged sword because he has just 1 year left, and properly pricing an extension for a career depth guy with one good year will be tricky. And I feel like we kind of know what that feels like. I mean, technically, it wasn't one season for Matty Beniers, but uh, it was not a long tenure. It was not a lot of body of work, and that's when you start questioning some of these other contracts. We talked about that on yesterday's episode. So, what's the bottom line per The Athletic? DeCord's out of nowhere heroics last year cloud the picture here, while probably saving the Kraken from an even worse ranking. I mean, I think that's fair, to be honest. I think it's fair, which makes me go back to the question of the day and the question that The Athletic asks at the end of the fan ranking article. What exactly is Seattle's plan to become an annual contender? And perhaps we get a little bit of a glimpse as to what that could be by looking into the prospect pool, or at least I'm sure, like me, you hope that is the case. Let's talk about some of the prospects. Thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. Erica L. Ayala back here with another segment. I mean, I gotta give you the truth. The Athletic, I think, does a great job with their rankings and their analysis, and they have come to a lot of the same conclusions that I have come to with my own set of eye test conversations, data analysis. And that's that we don't know what the future holds for the Kraken as far as the vision. What is the vision? What is really, the what are the measurable steps that the front office has put together? I don't know what the vision is. I'm not saying that there isn't a vision, but I don't feel that it is being communicated directly to us, and indirectly through what I'm seeing them put together. I'm scratching my head. But what everyone likes is the pipeline. The Kraken, rank number 9 in NHL pipeline rankings for 2024 per The Athletic. Now, we've talked about other rankings elsewhere, but everyone is pretty high on the Seattle Kraken. In particular, the young center group. We've talked about this before since the very beginning of the show. Ron Francis always said he wants to grow from the back out. Now, goaltending and defense are the first two parts of that, and you know how I feel about those two. But then he talks about centermen. And I do think that the Seattle Kraken are prioritizing centers. They're prioritizing two-way skaters over defense and goaltending. Do I think that's a good look? Not really. Does it make me comfortable? Absolutely not. Would I do it if I were the GM? Nope, but I'm not. Nobody's paying me to be the general manager of the Seattle Kraken. So, you take these prospect rankings and it's a silver lining. Perhaps the vision, I want to make sure I get the question, how it was phrased. What exactly is Seattle's plan to become an annual contender? And I think at least part of that is the pipeline. I think at least part of that is bringing Dan Bilesma and Jessica Campbell from the Coachella Valley Firebirds to the Seattle Kraken. And that is because some of these very players that we have seen compete 2 seasons in a row, their first 2 seasons in the AHL for the Calder Cup, they are the players that have the most potential, at least as a lot of analysts and on paper. That's what a lot of people think. But how long is it going to take us then? Maybe that's question 2, right? How long is it going to take us to be an annual contender? And that's where we kind of messed up. We got to the playoffs, as I've said multiple times before, a little earlier than expected. I've said it on Locked On Kraken. I've said it on CBS Sports. I've said it on Locked On NHL. We arrived too early. And now I think we're adjusting too late. Doesn't mean it's a complete wash, but it might be more difficult than, in my estimation, maybe it had to be. Here's the top player rankings in, in our young players in particular. Matty Beniers is at number 1. This is what I'm going to say because the last 2 episodes have in one way or another focused on Matty B. With what we're paying him, he better be number 1. He better be number 1. I talked about it on yesterday's episode. He is one of the highest paid players, not skaters, not forwards, not centermen, although he is, in most of those categories. He is the top on the roster, one of the top, period. Now, his skating per The Athletic is NHL average. His puck skills above average, hockey sense, compete level. I always think it's so weird how, anyway, compete level and shot all above average. The article basically says that, quote, he has all the capabilities to be a star number 1 center, and I expect him to bounce back next season. Amen to that. I agree. So who's at number 2? It's another centerman, recently drafted. And by recently, I mean in the most recent draft. So it's Berkeley Catton at 2, not Shane Wright. Skating is high end. Puck skills, hockey sense, compete level, and shot all ranked by The Athletic as above average. His foot speed is strong, but not at the same level as his edges. He's a very skilled puck handler and a great passer who can run an NHL power play. Catton makes a ton of difficult plays on the move and has a lot of pace in his game. He's not overly physical, but he competes. He wins pucks, gets to the net, and can kill penalties. He projects as an excellent top 6 center with a chance to be a number 1 center. So everyone's really high on Berkeley Catton. Shane Wright does come in at number 3. His skating is considered NHL average, but everything else, puck skills, hockey sense, compete, and shot are above average. Quote, he's an intelligent and creative offensive player who can make plays through defenders and 2 teammates. He is a shot and pass threat who can create chances from the perimeter. He also has a very good inside game. Yes, we talked about that during the Calder Cup playoffs. And he can create plenty of chances around the net. And then after Shane Wright is Carson Rehkampf, left winger, NHL average in skating, puck skills, hockey sense, and compete level. His shot is considered high end. He is considered in the bubble top and middle of the lineup tier. His game took off this season in Kitchener as he has become one of the best pure scorers in the OHL. I saw enough improvement in his effort this season, even though I certainly don't see him as a hard to play against type, and he stays on the outside a bit too much. I think he will be good at even strength and great on the man advantage, and looks like a potential solid top 6 forward in the NHL. Next is Julius Miettinen, centerman, of course. Middle of the lineup player, average skills in all categories. Miettinen started slow in his first season in North America, but caught fire as the year went along and became a big part of a successful Everett team. I wouldn't call his compete level high, but it's good enough given his frame. He's a strong skater. I wish he'd play quicker at times, but he has a lot of powerful stride and can skate with pros. He has a chance to be a third-line center. Yanni Neiman at 6, Riker Evans at 7. He comes in as a projected to play NHL games. His skating, puck skills, hockey sense, or his skating, puck skills, and compete are all NHL average. His hockey sense, and I would agree, above NHL average. And I love that his hockey sense is coming from the back end, from the blue line, from the defensive end. Evans splits time between Seattle and Coachella. The question on him will come down to defending given his frame. He competes hard, he has some bite, and his feet will help him be okay in that regard. But he'll need to bring a ton of offense to play major NHL minutes. He projects as a third pair defenseman. Oscar Fisker Molgaard comes in at 8. Average in everything, projected to play NHL games. His compete level is high end. Molgaard had a productive year in the SHL and was a top player for Denmark at the World Championships. He has skill, but is not high-end sense or skill with the puck. He's just an okay finisher. Molgaard could make it as a hardworking bottom six player. Jagger Furcus comes in after Molgaard. Projected to play NHL games, he's a NHL average in skating, hockey sense, and compete level. His shot is high end, his puck skills above NHL average. He has a lethal wrist shot and one-timer, scoring a ton of goals from range. I love that. And projects to beat NHL goalies from mid-distance. He has the offense, but the debate on Furcus is whether his game will translate. And we're likely going to see some Furcus at Coachella Valley. So I'm very curious to see what happens there. And then rounding out the top 10, David Goyette, left winger, projected to play NHL games. He's NHL average in skating, hockey sense, and compete level and shot, above NHL average in puck skills. He's always been a highly talented offensive player. He's a forward full of speed and skill who can create lots of scoring chances due to the pace and creativity in his game. I found he engaged a bit more consistently this past season. He created on the perimeter, but also created a lot more interior offense. So overall, number 9, that's not bad. That's not a bad place to be, but I still don't think that, given what we're feeling is the good faith or lack thereof in the organization, that this is not going to save us. And what is always missing, what continues to be missing, is high-end, elite-level veteran talent. But with the contracts that we have and the terms of those contracts, it's going to be increasingly difficult for the Seattle Kraken to get any of that veteran experience, to get any of, that cool, calm, and collected in pressure situations like the playoffs. It's going to be hard to get that on what we're projected to have in salary cap for the next handful of years. So, as I said before, let me know in the comments about the question of the day. What exactly is Seattle's plan to become an annual contender? We're going to keep talking about this, but I want to close out the show, as I always do, reminding you to be kind to yourself and please be kind to one another. Let's hold fast. Let's stay true and loud and proud. I'll say, as long as I'm hosting this show and beyond, let's go Kraken. I will catch you on the next episode. Peace out, everybody. Happy Hump Day, aka Wednesday.